Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. Things have been crazy over the past week. As many of you know, we've had a ton of solar activity, X-class flares, M-class flares from the sun. We've had this comet fly directly in between the sun and the earth, and we've also had some notable earthquake activity. Specifically, just in the past 24 hours, a magnitude 6.1 earthquake struck Japan, the North Island. We see that right here. We see some of the swarm activity that occurred after the recent magnitude 7.5 earthquake. Here is that 6.1, and this actually struck the island itself. It was a land-based earthquake, epicenter about 81 kilometers down. So this was not off the coast. And here we see some of the shaking for this, quite significant. You see that this is a big shaker. They have an intensity scale that they use. It was a 5 out of 7 on the intensity. So pretty significant, as you can see, and definitely Japan is a place to watch geologically. It's the most active place in the world for earthquakes as far as I know. Certainly top 3, undoubtedly. I think it's number 1 because of the plate tectonic regime here. Strong subduction underneath the Eurasian plate. And we've even seen some activity spreading a little further out. Here we see a magnitude 5.5 Mongolia. Keep in mind that we can get big megaquakes in Mongolia. There was a time, I think it's the year 1905, 1906, where we had 2 back-to-back megaquakes in Mongolia. So we're seeing some larger changes right now occur across the Eurasian plate, but it's really focused with Japan. And interesting to note is that this earthquake there occurred right when the sun was rising in Japan, which is Japan is the land of the rising sun. That is their flag, effectively, right? That's their whole thing, the land of the rising sun. This earthquake woke residents up after they just had a magnitude 7.5 earthquake about 10 days ago or so, right? They're very worried about a megaquake, magnitude 8 or greater. There are parts here geologically that have not ruptured yet that could generate big magnitude 8 or even magnitude 9 quakes. And then, well, right after that earthquake, 90 minutes later, as the sun is still rising over Japan, you get a 6.0 M-class solar flare. So it's really quite remarkable, these connections that exist. Here we see that solar flare in terms of our X-ray flux. We'll look at the imagery too. We see 6.0. So you have a 6.1 earthquake, you have a 6.0 solar flare, and it's all occurring on April 26th. So 2.6 or 6.2. So you have this clear 6.0, 6.1, 6.2 progression. You see this connection in time with Japanese culture, the land of the rising sun. And well, this isn't the only connection I can bring forth to you. In fact, we see this very long connection in history between solar activity and earthquakes in Japan. And that's what I really want to focus on in today's video, just to present this data to you so you can see what I'm talking about, because it really is quite remarkable. Here we see this 6.0 M-class solar flare that blasted off about 90 minutes after the 6.1 earthquake that struck Japan. So that is the focus of today's video. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm your host, Stefan Burns, geologist, geophysicist, space weather guy. We cover what's happening with the Earth energetically, earthquakes, volcanoes, solar activity, space weather. If you like the sound of that, then please subscribe. Let us get right into it. Here we have what just occurred. We've had this comet fly across like this around the orbit of Mercury, just slightly outside the orbit of Mercury. It's now south of the ecliptic plane. It doesn't seem to be interacting with the sun all too much anymore. But when it was over here, cutting in between the sun and Earth, we saw tons of activity from this sunspot group, which is now rotating out. But it looks like it has just in general, or it's perfectly corresponded with the generation and evolution of quite a bit of sunspot activity on the sun. And well, just like about 8 days ago now, our solar activity was basically zilch. We can see that again with our X-ray flux. We were down here in the B-class zone. Then we started to ramp up. Here's the 2 X-class flares. And we see this kind of ramp up there with that 6.0 M-class flare. We very well could have more coming up. But as this solar activity has been coming in, This hits Earth's ionosphere, charges the global electric circuit, and what we've seen geologically is that during these earthquakes or around them, we often get ionospheric disturbances. So there really seems to be a connection strongly with the ionosphere and the lithosphere in the region and around Japan for that part of the globe. There just seems to be a strong energetic connection there. And this could explain why we see this connection between solar activity and earthquakes in Japan. Now, a lot of people are aware of this connection. Let me show you. But let's go through actually a few examples. This isn't going to be every single earthquake that's occurred that's of significant magnitude, but I just was honestly going down the list and they kept popping up over and over again. Here we see, this is the 9th of March 2011. So this is 2 days before the magnitude 9.1 Great Tohoku earthquake, okay? Huge earthquake, tsunami, the Fukushima meltdown, disaster because of that, right? This is 2 days before that. We see a 2.2 X-class flare right there, blast off from Earth center and direct. And specifically, that was at 22:44 p.m. Universal Time, which is right around sunrise. Okay, so it's right around that time of sunrise. You get the sun rising in the east for the Japanese. They're there, they're seeing the sunrise, boom, 2.2 X-class solar flare. And well, we had a significant earthquake foreshock just before that. So it was specifically here at 2:45 a.m. Universal Time on the 9th of March that we had a magnitude 7.3 earthquake strike Japan. And we can see that data right here, magnitude 7.3, 2:45 a.m. Universal Time. So you see how there's a strong connection already. The ground is shaking, the sun is exploding, and then 2 days later, you get a magnitude 9 megaquake to rupture, causing widespread devastation, a nuclear disaster, and killing many, many people, unfortunately. So the sun is almost communicating with Japan, saying, hey, pay attention because big things are coming. It gives the people there a heads up. At least that's what I believe. But that's not the only example. Let's go forward to just what's been happening recently. We can go and look at the 9th of November 2025, and we will see a pretty significant solar flare. This will be specifically a 1.8 X-class flare at 7:32 a.m. Universal Time. So this is sunset for Japan. So a 1.8 X-class flare from the sun on the 11th. There it is. And well, guess what? We had an earthquake then too. So if we look at our earthquake, we actually had 2 earthquakes, and these were perfectly timed with this activity. If we go to our earthquake map here, we can go and look. This is showing earthquakes for November and December 2025. And if we look here, we see our magnitude 6.4, 8:54 a.m. Universal Time, and then we'll see our magnitude 6.8, same time, 8:03 Universal Time. So you see that they happened back to back, effectively. 8:03 and then 8:54 within 1 hour of each other, the 6.8 being the largest. This was a foreshock sequence to what happened then the next month in December. And again, that's right at that 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Universal Time. That solar flare that occurred was specifically at 7:32 a.m. Universal Time. So you had this solar flare right at sunset, and then boom, boom, 2 big earthquakes struck. Okay, let's go forward in time. Well, let's just go to look at December. The next big earthquakes that occurred, we had this 7.6 that struck here. This was on the 8th of December at 14:15 Universal Time. Okay, December 8th last year, 2025. Well, we can look at our sun for that as well. Here we can see this data, and guess what? We had a 1.1 one X-class solar flare at this time. So we'll see that very clearly. It'll be a very bright blast of light. And that specifically was right around the time frame. That was it right there. There was also, of course, you see other solar activity. Just in general, the sun was active. But that was at 5 a.m. Universal Time. So you can also watch our timer down here. 5 a.m. Universal Time on the 8th of December. We had a 1.1 X-class solar flare. We see that right there from Earth facing. So, you know, these aren't solar flares on the far side of the sun. We don't have a way to really track that yet in general. We're seeing this all being Earth facing activity. That earthquake again occurring at 14:15 Universal Time on the 8th of December. So you have the solar flare hit, and then you have the earthquake rumble less than 24 hours, a magnitude 7.6. We have more examples. Let's look at another one. This is one that I just found. I'm not surprised that it popped up, but I just found out about this. This is back at the turn of the year for 2024. So December 31st, 2023 to January 1st, 2024. We see a 4.9 X-class solar flare right there at the very end of the year. I remember covering this for you all. So huge solar flare, 4.9 from this part of the sun that's rotating into view. So that's almost like the rising part of the sun, which is interesting. Well, we can look at our data for that. And did anything happen in Japan? Yeah, it did. Here we see a 7.5 magnitude earthquake struck Japan 1st of January at 7 a.m. Universal Time. So that is during the day. It's actually, I think, because this is at the right after winter solstice, I think this is actually right around sunset. So you had, if we go back, you had this 4.9 X-class flare blast off from the part of the sun rotating into view during sunrise for Japan. And then about 8 hours later, you had a magnitude 7.5 earthquake strike the country as the sun is starting to set. These are just a few examples that you can look up. 2023, 2024, that boundary, that's one example. Two examples from last year, November, December, the biggest earthquakes that struck Japan. And then also an example from the past 24 hours, an example all the way from 2 days before the megaquake that struck magnitude 9.1 Great Tohoku earthquake. And that was a foreshock warning people that something big was coming. So I wanted to put that data in front of you so you could see what it's all about, because it really is quite remarkable, this connection between solar flares and earthquakes in Japan. And it really seems to be, it's not solar storm impacts. It's these explosions on the sun that release very short wavelengths of light. This is extreme ultraviolet. This is X-ray radiation. So it instantly ionizes the atmosphere when it hits Earth 8.3 minutes later after the explosion. Light photons travel in a straight line. That light, if it's headed towards Earth, will hit Earth. From the photons perspective, there's actually no time at all between when it then, let's say, gets absorbed into an electron. And well, when we see the ionosphere undergo these fluctuations, changes in charging, you get the ionosphere to actually charge up. There's more plasma. We are seeing this strong connection with earthquakes around Japan. It's really quite incredible. One other thing to note, I just want to bring it to attention for you, is that, and of course we just had this comet fly in between the sun, right? So comets are these omens of change and of significant change, especially if they're like so perfectly aligned, I would think, with the Sun-Earth axis. Now this comet C2025 R3 Pan-STARRS is going to start being viewable at night in the evening. And it should be visible definitely with binoculars, but probably with the naked eye. If you're in dark sky conditions, you have a good western horizon. It's fairly clear. It's not going to be that high up, but you should be able to see it. You know, this is a powerful energetic moment that we're going through right now. And we just had the peak of it. in the past 36 hours or so, right with this perfect alignment, these two X-class flares, but it's still very, very close and visible to us. Well, we see this connection between all this stuff energetically, the solar flares, the earthquakes, the space events like this, and also geopolitical things here on Earth. And I don't claim to have all the answers for this. I've just noticed this connection, okay? And there's also this connection to finances too, because solar activity actually affects us, our metabolism, our mood, our mental processes and consciousness. And so that's kind of the basis for this. And there's tons and tons and tons of experiments that have been looking at this for a long time. More than 100 years of research has been ongoing into the connection between solar activity and us and our collective movements and moods and more and stuff. So we see more spontaneous social revolutions and processes during solar maximum periods and more. Well, here we have the exchange rate between the Japanese yen and the US dollar. And again, I'm not claiming I know exactly what's going to happen, but if we look at this, you see that there's been this debasement of the Japanese yen against the US dollar going back to 2022. Here, the yen was down at about 100 yen per dollar, which is actually quite low. It was lower before. If we go here to 2012, we see it was like 75 or so. Now it's up around 160, and it's been banging on 160. So multiple times now it's gone to 160, 162, and it's really staying there strongly now, indicating, I would say, that the Japanese yen is about to be debased further against the US dollar, and we're probably going to enter into a new range in the 150, 180, 200 zone. And this would be the weakest the yen has been in a long time. You see that this is the weakest it's been already, going back to, what was this, the 1980s right here. And if you go before that, you see that the yen was quite a bit weaker. One thing to also note right now, just in general, none of this is financial advice, but the whole financial system is changing quite a bit. There are so many cracks, so many stress points, and they're doing everything they can to keep it like running and humming. But in general, it's so tough out there for so many people that this isn't sustainable. So Japan already, since their huge blow off top in the 80s and 90s, have been in this stagnant financial system that is very much indicative of where the rest of the world is going to. So it makes sense that they've been there for 20 plus years, that they are going to lead, probably more like 30 years now at this point. They're probably going to be the first ones to move into a new setup and system overall and take kind of that role on. Well, we see this debasement of the yen right now already happening, probably about to go to new levels. And this is while they're also hiking up interest rates. So the Bank of Japan has finally moved from negative interest rates to positive. They're now holding at 0.75% for the central bank. And this is a big deal because there's something known as the yen carry trade, where you get cheap yen and you don't really have to pay much interest on it. And then you can use that money to buy things like the S&P 500 in the United States, generate a return, pay back the yen. And this has been one of these things that's helped keep the global financial economy, more so just like big business and their profit margins, boosted up because you have this ability to constantly get free money from Japan effectively. Well, now that's starting to change as the central bank is raising interest rates to combat inflation and this debasement of the yen. And guess what? If you look at the 10-year yield in Japan, it's actually much higher than 7.75%. It's right now at 2.5%. So this is the highest it's been in a long time, okay? We just go back here to 2022 and 2021, we see that it's basically right there under 0.1%. So the carry trade is alive, it's strong, it's active. Even here, the turn of 2023, we see it's only at 0.24% for that 10-year yield. Now it's at 2.5%. It's gone up an order of magnitude in just about 3 years, let's say. So we are seeing also some really big cracks in the financial system focused over Japan, as we're also seeing increased earthquake activity in the past 6 months for Japan, with multiple magnitude 6 and 7 earthquakes, and the risk of a megaquake is very, very high. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. I'll leave some links in the video description for you to check this all out. For example, here we have our HelioTime web app, which shows us X-ray flux, so you can find these solar flares very nicely. If you want to look more into the earthquake and solar flare connection with Japan or perhaps other locations, this is a website to check out to do it. I just pulled up some of the biggest examples I could find, and they all had big solar flares connected with them in less than 24 hours. And often, as I described, it's like very synchronistic with the sun rising and then the solar flare hits, this sort of thing. So it's really quite incredible what's happening right now. And I just want people to be aware of this, especially the Japanese, if you're not already. And I don't claim, again, to know everything, so there's probably multiple more levels and depths to this, which I haven't not touched on in this video, which maybe you could write a comment and elaborate more on. But yeah, I'm looking at this area very closely, and because we are seeing uplift across Japan, we're seeing more magma at Mount Fuji, we're seeing volcanic tremor in the northern part of Japan, we're seeing tons of activity from Sakurajima. You have big volcanoes in Japan. I mean, just like zoom in here really quick. Here we see, I think this is Yotai. Yeah, so here's a big stratovolcano, Yotai, similar to Mount Fuji, but in the North Island. But you'll also notice, oh, that looks like a volcanic caldera. Okay, you have some indications of big volcanic structures here. We know that off the coast, just around this area, Kikai volcano, huge explosions. We're talking VEI6. So larger geologic forces exist in Japan. They're very active. They have these myths and legends that help them stay ahead of these disasters. When they see deep sea oarfish sightings coming up like crazy, they know that it's time to prepare for something. We are seeing oarfish sightings around the world at a higher frequency than normal. So there's a lot to be mindful of here. But as this plate continues to subduct underneath, this reverse thrust faulting, you get this sudden jolt and rise in general with Japan, and also for the Eurasian plate and more. We had magnitude 8.8 megaquake here, July 2025. We had the magnitude 9 earthquake strike here, December 2004. So if we look at the big earthquake activity for the globe overall, it's all been here for the 21st century. Of course, if you go back to 1960, you get the magnitude 9.5 roughly in this zone. And then 1964, you get magnitude 9.2 Alaska. So we can see that there's kind of this ebb and flow, at least at this time period, of going between the two. Right now, though, it seems we're still firmly focused on big plate movement shifts here. And the larger plate here, the largest in the world, is the Pacific plate, right? So the Pacific plate is effectively connected to both of these. I mean, you have this plate right here in between, but general Pacific plate is the real big player pushing on and expanding on things. Now we're seeing big activity around Japan. And so if we continue to see big solar activity, pay attention to Japan, because there seems to be, again, that very clear connection there. I've laid out all the examples for you, and well, we'll probably see more happen in the future. So that is your video for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been your host, Stefan Burns. Please smash that thumbs up button to help this channel grow. Subscribe to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the Earth energetically. Have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.